Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we'll be looking at the new electric G-Wagon. Before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Ken Garf Mercedes here in Salt Lake City, Utah for giving me some time with this G-Wagon. I'll include a link to their website in the description down below. If you have any questions, need any help, just ask for Dylan. Also include a link to my car buying guide. Let's get into it. This is fully electric, producing 579 horsepower and then 859 pound-feet of torque, and the stated range is about 240 miles. Now, Mercedes typically gets more range than what the EPA rates them at, so I bet it would be probably closer to the 300 range. Okay. Before we move forward with this review, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So taking a look at the hood, you can see normal G-Wagon hood. You'll notice that this looks like a regular G-Wagon. You even have the turn signal indicators on the hood. You can see the circular headlights. You got the new camera there at the very bottom. I just think that's an interesting choice. But yeah, I mean, it looks just like any other new G-Wagon with the front end style. Our tire wheel setup is 275 by 50 by 20 in the front and over in the rear. And you can see here with the wheels completely blacked out, you got the blue brake caliper, which is an interesting touch. I'll be interested to see how the suspension and everything feels compared to a standard G-Wagon. And this bright blue is pretty crazy, isn't it? You guys can see with the fender flares, body painted EQ badge there. You've got the blacked out side step, and here's your side profile with the G-Wagon. This then leads us to the key fob, where we have a lock and unlock function. And by the way, it still has the sounds, which is really cool. And you guys can see here with the trim inside, very interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's literally normal G-Wagon in the back. There is no concession with that, and still has the sound. Got the cool taillights lower down. This is kind of cool. It's a little storage container instead of a spare. So I wonder if they put the, did I lock that all the way? Yeah, I guess it is locked all the way. Do they put the spare underneath, or does this not have it? I don't think this has a spare, folks. Interesting change. But there's the rear. Now, of course, the door handles, all of them still make the G-Wagon sound. Really nice trim inside. This is nice, all down. Got heated seats for the rear passengers. Here are the seats. Really fancy stitching all throughout. Vents there for the rear passengers. They got their own climate zone. And of course, being a G-Wagon, you've got tons of headroom. This leads us up front, where again, you got the G-Wagon door handle. Really nice setup there. All of our window controls, the mirrors power fold in, blind spot warning with the mirrors. I'm interested to see the weight on this thing. So 7716 is the gross vehicle weight rating. Payload is 760. Not a lot of payload. So this weighs 7,000 pounds. Wow. And I think this has a, yeah, you got keyless entry just like the other G-Wagons, the new ones. I forgot, you gotta still click it. Brain fart. But anyways, let's pop in. So with the steering wheel perforated on either side, so you can get a good grip. You got the cool blue stitching in the center, paddle shifters there on the back. I'm guessing those are for the regen. Test it out a little bit. Anyways, controls for the infotainment system, volume controls, cruise control, controls for the center screen, regular turn signal windshield wiper stock, column shifter. Fully digital gauge cluster, just like other Mercedes. The classic view is very, wow, this is very spaceship-like, futuristic. Interesting. But you can see information, and this is what I'm talking about. You can see 87% charge. It says that it's around 240 miles, so Mercedes just seems to not be too friendly with the EPA is not friendly with Mercedes, rather, because they always underrate the Mercedes. 360 camera system, which is across all the G-Wagons now, and a lot of people are trading up to new G-Wagons just so they can get keyless entry and 360 camera. It's a big deal, and also touchscreen infotainment system. That's another big change. But yeah, I mean, this is all the same, and then you can see you've got the grab handle. It says Edition 1 on it because this one is an Edition 1. But yeah, nice trim all over the dash down below as well. And look at this. Now, I won't be able to test this out because we're in downtown Salt Lake where there is no off-roading. But it does have the fancy tank turn, whatever it's called, where you can spin the vehicle one way or another. Really cool system, but you got to be on dirt basically to do that. You still have a low range, which is cool for an EV. And then you can see down below the climate controls, got more storage here. Your like drive mode select in this area, and then you can see volume controls and then just general infotainment system controls as well. Also nice trim. Still have the same center console. I like how they didn't change the interior on this. I think that's nice. Nice headliner. You still have a regular sunroof. And this brings us to the price. Now, understand this is a special edition, right? So the edition 1 package, I mean, that's 18 grand. But anyways, 185,830 is the total price on this. Let's see how it performs. Okay, so yeah, the paddles are for the regen. I figured so, but I wanted to double check. I have been waiting to review one of these for quite some time, because I think that this is going to be a huge shift for Mercedes with EVs, because Mercedes initially tried the crazy, you know, technical aerodynamic stuff with the EQs, and, you know, some people bought them, but they didn't sell all that well. So with this, I think, you know, keeping a traditional style and just doing an EV powertrain, I think that's going to sell a lot better. Now, that being said, I don't know how popular these are going to end up being, because we have a huge shift now where EVs aren't as important as they were literally just a few weeks ago. You know, obviously this is a car channel, but Trump obviously signed all those executive orders, and one of them was to make it so that there's not all of the mandates with, you know, 50% EV by 2030, etc., you know, full EV by 2035. So manufacturers won't have to do as many EVs. But, you know, if the market demands it, if people want it, then people will go for it. So let's find out if this electric G-Wagon is one that you should go for. What I'll say right off the bat, it still feels like a G-Wagon. And I'm not just saying that because it looks like that on the exterior. It still has that big, substantial tank-like feel, and I mean, I think it's pretty easy to keep that when you weigh 7,000 pounds. Man, that is quick. It kind of has this rumble that they've put into the sound with the EV. So it doesn't quite sound as good as the V8, not even close. But it does kind of rumble. I wonder if it does more in the sport mode. It also has a trail and a rock mode, which is cool. Yeah, it kind of does it. It kind of does the rumbling too. That's weird. So weird to experience the regen in a G-Wagon. It's just not what you kind of expect when you're driving this thing. For being 7,000 pounds, this doesn't actually handle bad at all. It feels pretty like nimble, which I think is pretty impressive. I think a normal G-Wagon weighs about 1,000 pounds less, if I remember right. Maybe it's only 500 pounds less. The G-Wagon's like between 6,000 and 6,500. I try to remember the weight of all the cars, but I can't. Man, there's no downside to this, that I'm seeing at least. Let's take off the recoup. See how that feels. Man, this is weird. This is, but in a good way. You know, leave it up to Mercedes, I would say, to engineer an EV that looks like a gas car, but yeah, and that drives just like an ICE car. If you do normal recuperation, this is probably the way to put it, is normal recoup. I dig it. So here's my thoughts. The new G550 has an inline six that I'm not too fond of in the G-Wagon platform. And so if you're not an AMG buyer, I think this one might be a really good option to go for instead of a G550. And, you know, G-Wagons are all expensive, so it's like, yeah, this is like $20,000 more than a G550, but you're talking about a $20,000 price gap on vehicles that are over 6 figures. It's like if someone can afford a G550, they can probably afford one of these. I'll be interested to see what resale value ends up being like on the EV, because EVs in general usually don't hold as well as ICE cars. But this drives well. again, like I said, I don't feel like there's any concession. It still feels like I'm driving a G-Wagon. The only difference is you plug it in instead of going to the gas station. And this is what I think EVs should be. There shouldn't be any weird concessions. It shouldn't be like, well, it's, you know, looks really funky, right? Like, again, the Mercedes EQ cars, actually, I'll probably just go straight. The Mercedes EQ cars, or it drives kind of weird. Like, none of that. Like, this really does feel like a G-Wagon. It might even be more refined. The suspension and everything feels a little bit more comfortable on road. Couldn't tell you what the off-road feels like. But again, with EVs, that makes sense, right? Lower center of gravity and everything. So the EVs just tend to drive better than their ICE counterparts, as is. So I'm pretty impressed. I want to get you guys one last acceleration to cap things off. Yeah, and you get that instant power. I think the someone who lives in an urban area that likes the G-Wagons, I think they'd actually really like this over a traditional ICE G-Wagon. But let me know your thoughts.